In my hospital room, the beeping of the monitors sounded like a countdown, but it was nothing compared to the pounding of my heart. "You always fake being sick," my dad yelled, yanking at the foreline. I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron, tight enough to make tears sting my eyes. "Hi everyone, my name is Lila." I had spent weeks in this room, battling an illness my body didn't choose, and now I was fighting a battle I hadn't expected. My dad's face was red with anger, his voice echoing against the sterile walls. My mom stood frozen near the door, hands pressed together, eyes darting between us like she might somehow stop what was happening. The nurse outside had been checking vitals when she heard it. Her footsteps were fast, deliberate, authority in every motion. She burst in, her face hard, voice sharp. "You're not leaving, I called the police." My dad went pale, like someone had emptied the color from the room. My mom stammered, trying to explain, trying to calm him, but nothing worked. 10 minutes later, everything changed. Because sometimes, standing up for yourself doesn't wait for courage. It waits for witnesses who refuse to ignore the truth. The police arrived faster than I expected, their presence filling the sterile room with authority. My dad froze, still gripping the four-pole as if it were a lifeline. "Step back, sir," the officer said calmly, his voice low but firm. My mom hovered at the edge of the bed, her hands shaking. "Please, he's my father," she pleaded, but even she didn't meet my dad's eyes. I sat there, force still in my arm, chest rising and falling with the rhythm of fear and relief tangled together. I didn't feel brave. I felt like survival itself had forced courage into my veins. The nurse gave me a small, reassuring nod. "You did the right thing," she whispered, adjusting my blanket. My dad's face twisted with anger and disbelief. "This is my daughter. You can't threaten someone in a hospital," the officer interrupted. "Not when there are witnesses." For the first time in my life, the man who had always held power over me looked powerless. I watched as the officer guided him toward the exit. My mom followed, begging, pleading, but I remained seated. The door closed behind them, and the room finally felt quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something important. I had survived. And now, nothing could hold me down again. The room felt strangely peaceful after they left, but the weight of what had just happened pressed against my chest. I looked at the foreline, still dangling from my arm, and realized how close I had come to losing control over my own life. "Hi everyone, my name is Lila, and this wasn't just about a hospital room. This was about every time my parents had tried to diminish me, call me weak, or convince me that my suffering didn't matter." The nurse returned, clipboard in hand, her expression softer now. "I'm staying for a few more minutes," she said, "just to make sure you're okay." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. My hand still shook, but not from fear alone. It was from the sudden surge of strength I hadn't known I had. Later, my mom called from outside, her voice trembling. "Lila, please, can we talk?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch, letting her feel the weight of her choices for once. When I finally spoke, it wasn't anger, it wasn't pleading, it was calm, unshakable. "Mom, 10 minutes ago, everything changed. I won't let anyone, no one, hold me down again." The nurse smiled gently. "She means it," she said. And for the first time, I believed it. By the time the hospital room quieted completely, I had a moment to think. 10 minutes. That was all it took to shift everything. 10 minutes had separated fear from freedom. The nurse adjusted my fore, her hands gentle. "You've been through a lot," she said softly. "But now you're safe." Safe. The word felt foreign yet electric in my chest. I had spent years carrying their judgment, their accusations, their doubt. And in those 10 minutes, all of it had been stripped away. My mom lingered in the hallway, her voice barely a whisper. "Lila, please forgive me." I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. Forgiveness wasn't mine to give. Not yet. Not while my boundaries had been ignored for so long. Instead, I found my voice. Clear. Controlled. "Mom, you didn't protect me. You didn't help me. You let him scare me. I won't let anyone control me again." Her face went pale. Words failed her. And in that moment, I realized something. Courage wasn't a sudden roar. It was quiet, steady, unyielding. It was knowing when to speak. And knowing when to let silence do the work for you. The nurse smiled knowingly, as if she understood that tonight marked a turning point. 10 minutes. That's all it took to change the course of my life. By morning, the hospital felt like a different place. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting golden lines across the bed. I could still feel the tension in my muscles, the adrenaline lingering like a shadow, but it was softer now, replaced with clarity. My dad hadn't returned. My mom stayed near the nurse's station, quiet, hesitant. I didn't call for her. I didn't need to. She could see, in my eyes, that nothing would ever be the same. "Hi, it's Lila again." That day, I understood what it meant to reclaim your life. Not with anger, not with threats, but with unshakable resolve. The nurse brought breakfast, setting the tray gently beside me. "You're stronger than most people twice your age," she said. I smiled faintly. Later, the officer stopped by to check in. "Everything's settled now?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes. And thank you for making sure I had witnesses." For the first time in my life, I felt untouchable. Not because I was fearless, but because I had learned I could survive even when the people who were supposed to protect me didn't. And I made a promise to myself. Never again would anyone make me feel small, scared, or unworthy. Because 10 minutes had changed everything. By midday, visitors came and went, but I stayed in my bed, quiet, thinking. 10 minutes. 10 minutes had separated the girl who trembled under my father's grip from the woman who refused to be controlled. I could hear the faint murmur of nurses in the hallway, the soft beep of monitors, the occasional chatter of patients. Life went on around me, but inside, I felt a storm settle into calm. My mom approached again, this time hesitating at the doorway. "Lila, I didn't know," she began. I raised a hand gently, stopping her. "Mom, I don't need explanations. I need change. I need boundaries. I need respect." She faltered, the weight of her guilt visible in her posture. My dad had left without a word. He knew, even if he wouldn't admit it, that the rules had shifted. The nurse returned, checking my vitals with practiced precision. "You did everything right," she said softly. "You spoke up, and you let the system protect you." I nodded. It's strange. I always thought being strong meant fighting alone. But strength is knowing when to let others help enforce it. I stared out the window at the city below. The sun reflected off the glass buildings, dazzling and relentless. And for the first time in years, I felt the world was finally on my side. Evening came, painting the hospital walls in shades of orange and pink. The room felt warmer somehow, like the tension had dissipated with the day. I leaned back against my pillows, letting myself breathe fully for the first time in years. The nurse checked in one last time. "You're ready to rest now," she said, her eyes kind. "Tomorrow, you'll be stronger than today." I smiled faintly. Yes, I would be. My mom stood quietly by the door, hands clasped. Her face was drawn, pale, and remorseful. I didn't soften. Not yet. I only observed. "You changed everything," she whispered. I shook my head slightly. "No, Mom. You just saw me for who I really am. The girl you tried to break? She's not here anymore. I'm Lila, and I won't be small again." Her lips trembled, and for a moment, I almost felt the old love that had been buried under years of pain. Almost. I closed my eyes, feeling a rush of calm and control. For the first time, the hospital, the place where I had been vulnerable, powerless, felt like mine. And I knew, without a doubt, that from this moment forward, no one could take that power away. 10 minutes had done more than save me. It had changed everything. The next morning, sunlight poured into the room, soft and golden. I watched it spill across the floor, across the monitors, across the bed where I had fought so hard to survive, not just illness, but control, fear, and the weight of years. My mom lingered in the doorway one last time. Her eyes were wet, her voice barely audible. "Lila, I'm sorry." I met her gaze steadily, calm but unshakable. "Sorry doesn't fix 10 years of pain. But I've learned something important. I don't carry burdens anymore. Not yours. Not his. Not anyone's." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I saw the truth settle in. She had underestimated me, just as my father always had. I turned back toward the window, breathing in the crisp morning air. Freedom didn't feel dramatic. It felt quiet. Solid. Complete. The nurse placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did this," she said softly. "You stood up for yourself." I smiled faintly. Not out of triumph, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because I had survived. Because I had drawn the line. Because 10 minutes One moment, one voice willing to intervene, had changed everything. And now, the girl who was once a burden had become unstoppable.